Welcome to the Royal Armouries Museum in Leeds. The main entrance is an atrium that rises over 5 floors, to the full height of the building. Long colourful banners depicting arms and armour hang down, conveying a sense of spectacle and pageantry. On the left side of the entrance are the museum cafe and gift shop. On the right side is a timeline showing the evolution of arms and armour illustrated with objects from our collection. The museum's galleries are accessed by the lifts next to the Hall of Steel. Access to the galleries can also be gained using the spiral staircase within the Hall of Steel. Our popular crossbow range where visitors can test their skills is located on floor 5. Floor 5 can only be accessed using the golden lift. Floor 2 is where the tournament gallery and the war gallery are found. The tournament gallery is a large open space with a mezzanine area above it. Objects are displayed in cases arranged around the walls. To the left are armors and weapons that tell the story of the Field of Cloth of Gold, an important royal tournament from the 16th century. Portraits of key historical figures at this event feature on the large fabric banners which hang above. In the center of the gallery is a combat area, surrounded by a wooden barrier and benches for visitors. This is where our exciting live combat demonstrations take place. To the right of the area is a red and white striped replica medieval tent. Arranged around the tent are European tournament armor and weapons from the last 700 years. Located within the tournament gallery is Henry VIII's horned helmet. This was a gift from the Holy Roman Emperor, Maximilian I in 1512. Armet the horned helmet, 1512. Probably the most recognizable object in the Royal Armouries collections is the horned helmet of Henry VIII. The helmet is notable for its grotesque mask, its brass spectacles supported by a hooked and dripping nose, and its ram's horns. For 5 centuries its extraordinary features have stimulated the greatest scholarly debate. Henry VIII's foot combat armor is displayed in its own case close to other armors associated with the Field of Cloth of Gold tournament. The armor covers every inch of the body, so that every part is protected. The armor even protects the elbows and knees by using articulated joints of overlapping plates. This is so technically advanced, that in the 1960s NASA came to study it when developing their spacesuit. Foot combat armor, 1520. This remarkable armor is one of the most important here at the Royal Armouries, as it is only one of 4 such foot combat armors known to exist. It was made for Henry VIII to be worn at the Field of Cloth of Gold in 1520, held to cement the recent peace treaty between England and France. The 18-day spectacle centered around a grand tournament which included 2 days of combat on foot at the barriers. Unfortunately, just 2 months before the event was due to take place, the French unexpectedly changed the specification for the foot combat armor. As a result, work on Henry's armor ceased, leaving it incomplete and unfinished. Displayed next to the combat area in the tournament gallery are 3 lances of different lengths, mounted horizontally in a wide case. Below them is a colorful reproduction of a 16th century scroll, depicting a Tudor tournament. The bottom 2 lances are both decorated with red and gold paint, while the top lance is green and gold. The lances are cone-shaped, tapering to the end furthest away from view. The thicker end of the lances has a fluted design. Behind the thickest point are the hand grips which carry on past the elbow, and stick out behind the user, to act as a counterweight. A tournament participant would joust over a tilt barrier, scoring points by breaking his lance into 3 pieces against his opponent's helm. These lances, which probably belonged to Henry VIII, were originally decorated with bright, floral patterns and gilding. They are far too cumbersome for use in a joust, and were probably processional lances, which may explain their unusual survival. Across the tournament gallery from the lances is a 600-year-old jousting saddle, the oldest of only 6 that survive. It is designed to force the rider into a standing position, with the shield section covering the whole lower body. Impact marks from lance blows can still be seen. This saddle is designed specifically for a late 14th century joust called the Hohenzugerstek, or Gestek in the high saddle. In this variation of jousting, developed in the German-speaking lands, the aim was to break your lance against your opponent rather than unhorse them. Knights would ride against each other with coronal-tipped lances in an arena called a list, with no tilt or barrier to separate them. The saddle is made of wood with an outer covering of rawhide, which still retains traces of paint. It weighs 16 kilograms and is thought to be the oldest of just 6 surviving tournament saddles. The tournament gallery mezzanine provides excellent views of the whole gallery, including the combat area where live combat demonstrations take place every day. Displayed in the center of the mezzanine is the lion armor, which takes its name from the embossed lion head decoration that appears all over. Much of the armor is decorated with gold, with the remaining parts appearing brown. The brown was likely originally blue, which has oxidized over time. Lion armor, 1550. The embossed lion armor is thought to have belonged to King Henry II of France, 1547 to 1559, and can safely be attributed to the famous Negroli family of Milan, the dominant makers of this type and quality by the mid-16th century. The armor takes its name from the menacing lions' faces which appear on its most prominent surfaces. Perhaps most impressively, the helmet is fashioned to frame the face with the lion's open jaws, in the manner of an ancient Roman parade outfit. The War Gallery is located on the other side of the atrium from the Tournament Gallery. In the center of the War Gallery is a cross-shaped display of armored figures on horseback and others shown standing holding long pole weapons. Overhead is a stylized volley of arrows. Around the gallery are displays of armors, swords, shields, and firearms from many centuries of warfare and a model of the Battle of Agincourt. Objects are arranged chronologically from the Stone Age to the 18th century. 19th and 20th century objects are on the mezzanine floor above, which can be accessed via the stairs next to the gallery's performance area. One figure within the War Gallery's cross-shaped open display is a fully armored knight sitting on a brown horse. The horse is also covered in shining armor. The horse armor is fluted in design, with a metal spike protruding from the center of the horse's chevron. The knight is encased in plate armor with mail protecting the vulnerable places. In the right hand is a mace and in the left are the reins. The reins and the saddle cloth are both red. Gothic armors, fashionable in Germany in the late 15th century, are usually regarded as the pinnacle of the medieval armorer's art. On the far side of the War Gallery, near the cross-shaped display of armor is an area devoted to the arms and armor of the English Civil Wars. In the center of this area is the armor, sword, and leather coat of Colonel Alexander Popham. The buff leather coat is pale yellow in color and covers the full upper body. It has long sleeves, a high buttoned-up collar and a long flared skirt. The breast and back plates are attached together over the shoulders of the coat, by 2 reinforced leather straps. A white leather belt secures the lower part. This rare light armor is traditionally associated with Alexander Popham, a colonel in the Army of Parliament during the English Civil Wars. These pieces were originally displayed together in the Great Hall of Littlecote House, Wiltshire. In the 17th century, buff leather coats became increasingly common as plate armor fell out of use. The heavy breast and back plates are designed to be shot-proof, with the sharply angled waistline reflecting the fashion of the period. In the War Gallery is a writhen hilt sword. The sword's blade is straight and double-edged, of a diamond shape that flattens out and tapers towards the point. A ridge runs down the center of the blade. The hilt is made from bronze and wood and decorated with gold. The wooden hand grip and pommel are formed to resemble a gnarled stave of three entwined branches, which splay out at the ends. The cross guard has a similar form. This writhen-hilt sword is one of three known to exist anywhere in the world, and one of two that can be seen by the public. In Germany, over 500 years ago, this amazing sword was made for a rich, powerful, but unknown person. It was made primarily for show, in parades and other social occasions, worn either on foot or on horseback. The Danzig handgun is displayed in the War Gallery in a large case next to a longbow along with other 15th century objects. The gun is formed of a small hexagonal metal tube. The center section is thicker and features the face of a bearded man, whose mouth forms the touch hole where the user would ignite the gunpowder. Three other bearded faces surround the muzzle end of the gun, so a projectile would appear to shoot from the tops of their heads. The opposite end of the gun is hollow, to allow a wooden stave to be inserted and held. The Danzig handgun, 1350 to 1430. The medieval handgun, a term that originally meant any gun that could be carried and fired by one person, was revolutionary in warfare, hunting, and self-defense. It probably emerged in China alongside the first large guns, but none of the early examples known from Europe can be specifically dated. The Danzig gun is named after the historical German town, modern-day Gdansk in Poland, where it was found during dredging work in the 1920s. Displayed next to the Danzig handgun is an iconic English longbow. It is a long stave of yew wood, which tapers gradually at either end. The longbow is just over 6 feet in length, but because there is no bowstring attached, the stave is almost completely straight. Longbow, 1535 to 1555. This bowstave is among the group of oldest known surviving English war bows, originally part of the Mary Rose's weaponry when she sank into the Solent Silt in July 1545. On the mezzanine floor of the War Gallery are objects from the 19th and 20th centuries. Mounted on the far right of a large display case of First World War weapons is a Thompson submachine gun. Its shoulder stock, trigger grip, and foregrip are made of wood and have 3 finger grooves in each. The main body of the weapon is steel. A large round drum magazine is located between the 2 grips. During the First World War, the American Colonel John T. Thompson sought to invent a submachine gun that would serve as a trench broom to sweep the enemy from the trenches. Thompson's prototype was delayed until 1919 by his service in the U.S. Army, and no peacetime government wished to purchase it. Instead, it appealed to those on the other side of the law. His first customer was the Irish Republican Army. This piece is one of 500 Thompsons smuggled into Ireland in 1921. Along the War Gallery mezzanine from the First World War displays are a row of 7 machine guns on a plinth, all with their barrels pointing right. The second gun from the left is a prototype Maxim machine gun. It appears as a large black rectangular box, with a long brass barrel protruding from one end, mounted on a brass tripod. Centerfire automatic machine gun, experimental Maxim, 1884. This Maxim prototype may very well be the forefather of every machine gun, self-loading, and automatic firearm in the world. Only 3 are known to exist, and of those 3 this is considered the oldest version. At the midpoint of the Hall of Steel's spiral staircase is a circular viewpoint. Visible through this is a mass display of breastplates, pistols, swords, spears and halberds. These are arranged in patterns on the inner walls of the Hall of Steel. Views of Leeds city centre and the canal are also visible from this position on the stairs. The mezzanine floor of the hunting gallery is on the 5th floor of the museum. On the roof of the gun room, located in the gallery below, is a diorama of a man lying on his stomach in a long narrow boat called a punt. He is using a large punt gun to hunt wild birds. The gun room is 8-sided and contains a reproduction of a Victorian gentleman's study, with hunting guns displayed around the walls. At the opposite end of the gallery is another 8-sided room that contains a cinema. On its roof is another diorama, of two 18th-century hunters stalking a chamois antelope with spears. Around the walls of the gallery are hunting weapons dating from the Stone Age to the 20th century. A large display case with an autumnal forest scene backdrop contains a range of hunting equipment, such as swords, crossbows, arrows, and spears. One of the objects featured is a boar sword. It has a very long blade with a metal crossbar inserted about 2/3 up its length. The handle or hilt is long enough to be held with both hands and is wrapped in black leather. Boar hunting required particular courage, and dedicated weapons were designed for this dangerous sport. Used purely for thrusting, the blunted blade is strong enough to withstand the considerable force of a charging boar. The crosspiece near the tip, a modern replacement, was necessary because too deep a penetration of the blade would bring the bearer dangerously close to the wounded animal. The central area of the hunting gallery is dedicated to richly decorated hunting weapons. This display shows weapons as works of art. A hunting spear is so long that must be mounted centrally and at an angle so it can fit in the case. The spear's steel blade is leaf-shaped and finely decorated, but the wooden shaft is modern. Despite the dramatic reduction of forests for agriculture, boar hunting was popular in the 17th century. This exceptional hunting spear is encrusted with gold and silver on a blackened background that depicts trophies of arms, crossed palms, strapwork and stars. It is in the style of Gasparo Mola, 1567–1640, a goldsmith who spent much of his life working for the Medici family of Florence. Behind a curved wall and tucked under the hunting gallery mezzanine is an area dedicated to whale hunting. A whaling cannon and grenade harpoon dominate the space. This large swivel gun was bolted to the prow of a ship. It is made of steel and painted light blue-gray. The cone-shaped harpoon head is red with 4 fins at its base and a length of thick rope attached. The curved wall acts as the display's backdrop and features an image of a polar ocean with icebergs and a whale's tail protruding from the water. Originally designed in 1864 by Norwegian whaling entrepreneur Sven Foyn on ideas developed by polar captain Erik Eriksen to hunt baleen and blue whales, this cannon was made in 1947 by Kongsberg Vapenfabrik. Intended to be mounted in the bows, it is a breech-loading 90mm cannon that fires 51 kg explosive-headed harpoons, or grenades. Similar cannon are used today, particularly by the Icelandic whaling fleet, to hunt minke whales. Its appearance as a Royal Armouries treasure demonstrates the way in which the collection prompts unexpected questions. At one end of the hunting gallery is a large case with an image of the African savanna as the backdrop. Displayed within are weapons connected to big game hunting in Africa. On the left is a large gun that belonged to the adventurer and author Hewitt Grogan, mounted above a copy of his book. This enormous double-barreled 4-bore rifle is a royal model, made by the famous London gunmakers Holland and Holland. Built in 1888, it is one of the largest production game rifles ever made in Britain. It was sold in 1897 to the noted British adventurer, big game hunter, and imperialist Hewitt Grogan. Grogan was celebrated for his colonial achievements, including important public works in Kenya, but was a controversial figure even in his own time. He was an avowed white supremacist and was jailed in 1907 for thrashing 3 men outside the Nairobi courthouses for being impudent to his sister. In 1896, Grogan volunteered for service in the Second Matabele War, in what is now modern-day Zimbabwe. He suffered an injury for which he traveled to New Zealand to recuperate, where he impressed his future wife Gertrude Watt with exaggerated tales of adventure. In the center of the hunting gallery is the Chula garniture, which is one of only a few objects in the Royal Armouries collection made specifically for a woman. The complete garniture comprises a sporting gun, a pair of pistols, a powder flask, a patch box and a pair of stirrups. This elegantly decorated set belonged to Elizabeth Petrovna, 1709–62, daughter of Peter the Great and Catherine I of Russia. In 1741, Elizabeth led a military coup and declared herself Empress of Russia. During her reign she encouraged the Russian arts, founding the Academy of Fine Arts in St. Petersburg and the University of Moscow. The garniture was made by now unknown craftsmen employed at the Imperial Arms Workshop at Chula. It is decorated in the French style of chiseled steel on a gold background. Welcome to the Oriental Gallery, which is on the 4th floor of the museum, and its mezzanine level above, on the 5th floor. The gallery is organized into geographical sections including Japan, China, Africa, East Asia, and South Asia. Throughout the gallery and mezzanine level are swords, edged weapons, armor, and firearms from all these cultures. A life-sized model of an elephant wearing armor is in the South Asia section of the gallery. In the main section of the gallery are 4 open displays of cavalrymen from different cultures and times, ranging from a Mughal cavalryman, a Turkish horse archer, a replica terracotta warrior and horse, and a Japanese samurai on horseback. Close by is the entrance to the Japanese section. The Japanese section of the Oriental Gallery features several samurai armors and many swords, daggers, and polearms from the last 700 years. This Japanese dagger is unusual because it has a German blade. The blade is single-edged and slightly curved. A mirror placed behind the dagger shows its other side. The dagger's scabbard displayed beneath it is covered in orange leather and decorated with a 3-star Morn, heraldic family crest, which potentially links the dagger to the Matsuura clan of Hirado. This unique dagger is the only known Japanese sword fitted with a reworked European blade. Europeans first arrived on Japanese shores in 1543, and for a while numerous Western goods became fashionable. Helmets and cuirasses which imitated or reused European originals began to feature in Japanese suits of armor. European swords, however, were regarded as crude in comparison to Japanese blades. Yet intriguingly, this Ikuchi, a guardless dagger, incorporates a German blade which was made in Solingen during the early 17th century, before being reshaped, hardened and polished in the Japanese manner. Close to the center of the Oriental Gallery, beside a replica terracotta warrior, is a Ming Dynasty jian or sword. The sword is displayed vertically within its scabbard. The hilt and scabbard are decorated with Buddhist imagery in gold, silver, and semi-precious stones. A monstrous mask dominates the handguard. This is a representation of a Kurtamaka, which translates from Sanskrit as face of glory, or a chibar in Tibetan, which means that which resembles nothing. It is a symbol of protection. This sword is one of the prized treasures in the Royal Armouries collection and one of the most beautiful surviving examples of ornate metalwork from the early Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644. Its decoration is similar to that of several ritual objects known to have been commissioned during the rule of the Yongle Emperor, 1403–24. Interaction with Tibetan Buddhism increased in China during this period, as well as the monster mask with its flaming mane and huge jaws, and the intricate dragons curled within cartouche. The sword fittings depict auspicious emblems of Buddhism. This high-status sword could have been made for presentation to a powerful Tibetan monastery or allied ruler, or even for the Yongle Emperor himself. Near the Oriental Gallery's main entrance is a Mughal heavy cavalryman sitting on an armored horse. The horse's armor is made of thousands of tiny overlapping horizontal metal plates. The warrior has a large round shield on his back. A quiver and a holstered bow are attached to his left side. He wears an open-faced helmet, mail with plate armor around his torso, blue trousers and brown leather boots. During the expansion of the Mughal Empire, 16th–18th centuries, heavy cavalry across northern India and much of the Deccan wore mail and plate armor with helmets. Their horses were also protected by body armor called bargustawan. The troops used various combinations of weapons, including the sword, composite bow, lance, mace and saddle axe. They also carried cane shields. Surviving horse armor from this period in South Asian history is extremely rare, especially in near-complete condition. Behind the Mughal heavy cavalryman is a display of many Islamic objects. One of these is a Mamluk hand cannon. The gun is made of bronze, which has become green with age. The cylindrical shaft or barrel is flared at the base and widens to a cup-shaped upper barrel. The gun is engraved with Islamic text. This bronze bombard is the only known surviving example of a Mamluk hand cannon. The inscription on the breech declares that it was produced on the orders of Emir Kurtbi al-Amr, Viceroy of Syria during the reign of the Mamluk Sultan al-Nazir Muhammad, 1497–98. Emir Kurtbi tried to modernize the Mamluk army by establishing 4 firearms battalions in Damascus, much to the dismay of Mamluk noblemen who jealously guarded their superior status as elite horsemen and archers. To the front of the Mughal heavy cavalryman is the South Asia section of the Oriental Gallery. A life-sized model elephant fills most of this area. Displayed upon the elephant is the largest animal armor in the world. The armor is constructed of thousands of overlapping steel plates fastened together with mail. The plates are tied together with red fabric to make larger panels. Riding on top of the elephant are 2 human figures, clad in mail armor and wearing helmets. One is holding a spear while the other is driving the elephant. War elephants often formed the shock troops of South Asian armies. During battles, they were both powerful fighting animals and intimidating mobile vantage points. Accounts from the 15th and 16th centuries mention charging war elephants wearing tusk swords whilst ravaging enemies on the battlefield or battering fort defenses. This is the only example of an almost complete, all-metal elephant armor in any public collection in the world. It was probably made in an Indian arsenal in the late 16th or 17th century. Welcome to the Self-Defense Gallery, which is on the 4th floor of the museum, next to the Oriental Gallery. Because the cases are arranged around the gallery in U and L shapes, and there is a low ceiling, the Self-Defense Gallery has an almost maze-like feel. Featured in this gallery are weapons and armor designed for use in public spaces, by non-military people or civilians. Some weapons are designed to be concealed or disguised, while others are homemade or improvised. Many of these guns, daggers, and swords would have been used to commit crimes or in self-defense. A large display case in the Self-Defense Gallery, near the elephant armor, features many swords used by civilians. On the right side of the display are a sword and buckler. The buckler is a small round shield formed of a wooden core and reinforced with a series of concentric steel rings. These are riveted together by rows of brass rivets, the heads of which create a decorative beading effect. In the center of the shield is a short, blunt spike. The sword has a steel guard around the hand grip which is designed to protect the user's hand. A buckler is a small shield held in the fist, usually used in conjunction with a sword. Made in Wrexham in Wales, they were used widely by infantrymen and civilians from 1440 to 1580. The accompanying sword is one of the best preserved examples from the reign of Henry VIII. It was discovered in 1979 in the River Thames in London. The remains of a very similar hilt were found on the wreck of the Mary Rose which sank in 1545. A balestrino-type crossbow is made completely of steel, and because there is no string attached, it resembles a small capital T. It is displayed near the self-defense gallery stairs. These stairs provide access to the mezzanine level of the Oriental Gallery and the crossbow range, both of which are on the 5th floor of the museum. Only 15 of these so-called assassins crossbows are known. Small enough to be concealed by would-be assassins, the hollow handle contains the screw-jack mechanism by which the string is spanned. They clearly posed a tangible threat. In 16th century Venice, the punishment for carrying such a crossbow whilst wearing a mask was to have both hands cut off. In 1594 an assassination plot against Queen Elizabeth I was thwarted, in which a little crossbow of steel was to be used. The M41A pulse rifle is a prop from the movies Aliens and Aliens 3. Green molded plastic covers the gun, it has a wooden grip, and a metal barrel painted black. It is on display in the Make-Believe exhibit, which is dedicated to arms and armor from the movies and other forms of popular culture. Next to the pulse rifle are other iconic props, the Rebel and Stormtrooper blasters featured in the Star Wars trilogy. One of the most iconic sci-fi weapons of all time, the pulse rifle, was designed by director James Cameron for his classic 1986 film Aliens. The firing props combine a Thompson submachine gun from the Second World War with parts from Remington and Franke shotguns. A custom shell completes the look. This example appeared on screen in both Aliens and Aliens 3, 1992. The bridge on the 5th floor between the Hunting and Oriental galleries spans the expanse of the museum's atrium. The top of the banners that were just visible at the entrance on the ground floor is now below. Every floor of the museum is visible from this vantage point, as is the boulevard outside that leads to the museum entrance. We hope you enjoyed our virtual tour and our collection. You can find out more about the museum and the collection on our website, by visiting one of our 3 sites in Leeds, Portsmouth and the Tower of London, or you could subscribe to our newsletter.